Hello, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Lil Dudes Insect Academy podcast. I'm your host, Bradon Coy, and I'm super stoked for a new guest this time. Wait, before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you for tuning into this episode of the Lil Dudes Insect Academy podcast, and just ask you to please hit the like button below or click the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or follow this podcast if you are listening. That really helps the show out. But also, if you want to help us further, then join our Patreon. We have an awesome community that is growing there. Or if you want to make a one-time donation, we are a nonprofit foundation. So head to our website. Both the Patreon and the website will be linked down below. But without further ado, back to the episode. Everybody, welcome to the show, Kelly. Kelly is a researcher in New Jersey, and she's working on her PhD on mosquitoes. She's worked on all kinds of things, but we'll go over all of that. But she's also the host of another entomology-focused podcast called Bugs Need Heroes, and it's a really awesome podcast where they talk about bugs, and they create superheroes based off of real-life bugs, and I think that's super cool. So we're going to talk about it all today. Kelly, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for hopping on here. Go ahead and say hello to the people for me.
Hi everybody. Hi, Bradon. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for jumping on here. So, let's just get right into it.
Sure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you working on right now?
Sure. So I am, like you'd mentioned at the top, I'm getting my PhD right now at Montclair State University here in New Jersey. My research is in mosquito, what we call thermosensitivity and thermotaxis. So how they deal with heat in various forms, whether it's host finding is one part of my project, and sort of the genetics of that, one particular gene, and the other part of it is how heat affects the staggered egg hatching of the particular species I'm working with. So maybe staggered egg hatching is a new term for some folks out there. What happens is my particular mosquito species, and many from genus Aedes, so mine is the eastern treehole mosquito, Aedes triceriatus. What they do is they lay their eggs along the waterline of maybe a tree hole filled with water, or it could be any sort of small ephemeral container where the water level shifts, and they might lay 20 or so eggs at a time. So they have to get dry, and then that water level will raise again and inundate the eggs, which causes bacteria to start forming on the outside of the eggs, drops the oxygen levels in the water, and that triggers the eggs to hatch. But they don't all hatch at once. So when you live, or you're putting your babies into a space that could dry up at any moment, you don't want everybody to hatch at the same time because they might not make it to adulthood. So they do little staggered hatching. A few babies every time that water dries and then inundates the eggs again. So what I was doing was looking at how the water temperature, changes the way that staggered hatching works.
That's interesting to think about, and
it's a form of bed hedging, so other species do it.
Yeah.
Plants do it sometimes as well. Other bugs, some lizards. It's not uncommon in the natural world.
So this might be a little bit of a silly question, but
Oh, there are no silly questions.
they were all laid at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like most other animals, like humans. Like when they're ready, right? It's not like that. They can hold it like they can just wait to hatch. And is that like a programmed thing?
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, we're not really sure. I haven't found anything in the literature that we don't really understand why some of them, what is the trigger for some and not others. Because it's not like they hatch in a line, and not like the first 3 don't hatch or the first 2.
It's
they
not
kind
in
of
order.
just go. Yeah, so it's really interesting. And but what I've noticed with my research, and my advisor and I just published this paper recently, which is awesome. The first publication from my PhD, which is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But the warmer the water, and this isn't too surprising. So as the water gets hotter and hotter, those first few rounds, specifically the first 3 rounds of hatching, most of the eggs hatch. And that's, I think, or what we hypothesize is if it gets too hot, 1, the eggs can no longer survive, so they're just not viable. And 2, if that water is getting to lethal temperatures, you might as well get everybody to pop at once. and see who makes it before it either dries out or kills the larvae. But the first 3 rounds are like really where the magic happens, when it's hot. And by hot, we're talking 28 degrees Celsius.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty toasty.
Yeah, so do you notice any difference in like the adults, or do they all develop the exact same way?
So the way heat works with a lot of invertebrates, their development speeds up. Mm-hmm. So the hotter it is, the faster they become adults. And because of that, the adults tend to be smaller. So the larvae don't have as much time to put on weight before pupating and then metamorphosizing into adults or emerging. So they're smaller. You got smaller adults if they're pushed to really come out quick.
Yeah, that's crazy. So
it's neat.
This is obviously still a work in progress with your PhD program. How much time do you have left, or do you know?
I am defending April 18th.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so you're done with it. You just have to wait for it to be... That's awesome.
That project is completely finished. It's been published to the Journal of Vector Ecology as a note because it's kind of a smaller study. My advisor is actually getting me edits for my last research chapter, and then I'll have to send that to my committee. Mm-hmm. They'll give me notes, and all this has to happen before April 18th. So then I have to make my presentation, and the defense is the scary part.
So so as long as everything goes to plan, you'll be Dr. Zimmerman very soon.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. That's the goal. It's been 7 years.
Wow. Working
on my PhD. Now, some schools, 7 years can be kind of the average.
Yeah.
Some schools, it's kind of long. At my school, it's a little bit long, and that's because of COVID. Well, partially because of COVID. So I switched advisors at some point, which means I had to change my project. And then COVID happened, and I was unable to go to the laboratory to do research because we couldn't be on campus. So it was a bit of a struggle, as I'm sure it was for everyone else on the planet at the time.
So that's an interesting thing. So for that whole year, was it all like you like diving back into the literature? Like, what did you? I would be so like bored and like anxious that whole time. I'm not doing anything. Right?
So anxious, and of course I was so concerned for my health and the health of my loved ones. So I had that stress going on. I did do a bunch of literature review, and also during that time I did my qualifying exams. Do you know what the quals are, Bradon?
A little bit. I've heard a little bit about it, but for those at home, that would be great to talk about.
Yeah, so when you're getting your PhD, you have what's called qualifying exams. You usually have a written and an oral. I think some schools maybe don't do the oral if the written is really great, or at least that was my father-in-law's experience. But most of the time you do. So your qualifiers, you have a committee, so you have your advisor, and then at my school I have 2 committee members from my department or an adjacent department that works with the research I'm doing, and an outside committee member from another school. So they get together. First I send them a proposal for my projects, what I want to do. They send feedback on that, yes or no, change this, why this, etc. So for the quals, each committee member gives me several questions based around my research, and I think I had a week to answer them with a full lit review. So citations, the whole...
Wow.
The whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It ends up being like a report, like a big report.
So not just this is what I think about this, or like this is...
Must be supported with published research, my answers. Wow. Yeah. And then I had the oral quals. Now the oral quals they all get together, and because it was during COVID, mine had to be on Zoom. And I don't love Zoom for that kind of a thing. It's a little awkward for me. So they all asked me questions, whatever they wanted. I had no idea what the questions were going to be for 4 hours.
You need like a nap halfway through. That is wild.
My anxiety was so high the whole time, and I say that because I want others to know who go through this process. It's okay for this to completely freak you out, because I was incredibly uncomfortable. So yeah, that was 4 hours, and I struggled with it a little because, well, partially because again Zoom I have issues with. It's hard to tell if my committee is making faces because of something I said or because of something one of them said. And so, you know what I mean? It gets to be a little bit weird. I don't know if they're checking their email in the middle of my question.
Yeah, it's that social barrier, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're face to face, you kind of know like their full attention is on you versus the dog in the background. Or
Yeah, I was really missing a lot of social cues that I felt necessary for this.
Yeah.
But, you know, I made it through. I answer the questions. They put me in like a little Zoom room by myself, and they go talk to themselves. And I look down, and my phone's been blowing up the entire time I've been doing this. And I look down at my phone, and people were storming the Capitol.
Oh my gosh. The whole 4 hours of... That is hilarious.
I couldn't believe it. Like, they came back, and I'm like, guys, I think something really bad is happening right now.
So was that like halfway through, or did you like finish it up, or like
that I had noticed it was happening about halfway through, and I didn't say anything. And then at the end, when they
maybe
like
that's
let
why
me,
they were a little distracted.
yeah, when they let me by myself, then I really looked at it and I was like, oh my god.
Oh, that's crazy.
It was quite the day. I was absolutely exhausted afterwards, and all kinds of anxiety. Thank goodness my husband was in the next room, and he's like, are you okay? How did it go? He's like, have you seen the TV yet?
That's something wild. Yeah, never a dull moment. Like, you know, it's got to be that day, of course. You
know? It really puts things into perspective.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
If you're listeners, or if you go for a PhD, and it's time for your qualifying exams, you don't have to go through something similar. It'll just be smooth sailing for everybody.
And hopefully it's in person, right?
Yes, in person.
That would be really great.
My defense will be in person. Thank
That's
goodness.
Great. Yeah. That's really good.
Do you know the defense process? Have you?
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that. I don't think anyone's explained it, but yeah, that's pretty interesting too.
Sure, yeah. I figure if you've got college students and high school students, they're thinking about this path. So the day of the defense, at my school, it's open to the public, so anyone can come. Friends, family, strangers off the streets, professors from other departments and my department, students, both undergrad and grad. And they all pile into a room, and I give the talk. The talk will be probably around an hour or so, and I have to take questions from anyone who wants to ask them. And sometimes that's great because you get folks who are completely unfamiliar with your project or your field even, and they ask really thought-provoking questions.
Yeah.
Which is great. Or sometimes they ask really easy questions because they don't know, you know, and that makes you feel smart, so that's nice. We want that. And then when I'm done answering audience questions, everyone has to leave, but me and my committee. Then I sit in a room with just my committee, and they tell me how the talk went, ways to improve, and then they start asking me questions. And they're supposed to grill you pretty hard.
Yeah.
And that's the scariest part, I think. I used to think maybe audience questions were the scariest because I'm like, oh, I don't know where they're coming from or what this is going to be. But I think committee might be worse. And then I answer their questions. They kick me out, and they confer for probably about 20 minutes. I don't know that they even need 20 minutes. I think they kind of know. But they make you sit out in the hallway for about 20 minutes with your friends and family.
Rite of passage.
Shaking with fear. And then they'll open the door and say, well, either we need you to like make a few changes, or congratulations, doctor. Hoping for a congratulations, doctor, and not a we need some changes. But it's a pretty nerve-wracking day, and it was like this when I got my master's.
Yeah.
So my master's degree was a similar thing, easier. Yeah, my master's was easier. The projects were a little less intense. So we'll hopefully it all goes well.
Yeah, and there's kind of less, I'm not going to say less writing on it, but there's less material, right? It's only usually a 2-year project.
Yeah, it was a 2-year project for me.
Yeah, not to make you nervous or anything, but like,
sure,
just for the people out there. Do you know, like, do you know how rare the we need some more changes versus congratulations, you did it? Do you know what the statistics are on that?
I think it's kind of rare.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Usually when you go up for your defense, your committee feels that you are ready.
Right.
They're not supposed to let you defend unless they feel you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you get nervous, right? And maybe it gets a little uncomfortable. You forget what to say, or you can't answer a question. And they'll be forgiving with that. They should be. But overall, you should do it when they feel that you've got this. Because no committee wants to put you up.
Oh, yeah.
And then you fail because it's got to be.
It's a waste of time. It's humiliating.
It's humiliating, yeah.
Yeah. And you choose your committee, so you
Yeah.
are able
You're supposed to.
Yeah.
I've heard horror stories where advisors chose the committee and the student was not really comfortable with it and it was tough. I do know a woman who did not pass her defense, and I don't know why she was allowed to be up there. You know what I mean? So it can get a...
Completely depends on the school.
I think it depends on your advisor, and
yeah.
My advisor and my committee have known me for years now. One of my committee members was my master's advisor, so we're very close. He's wonderful. He's Dr. Scott Kite at Montclair State. Awesome dude. And my, I guess I should say my PhD advisor is Dr. Matthew Artema at Montclair, and he's wonderful as well. He's an entomologist and he's part of the Museum of Natural History in New York as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, big shoes to fill as far as committee members go.
Yeah, and I think one really important thing is that your advisor wants you to succeed.
Yeah,
right?
they do.
Nobody's against you here, so it's like, you build your committee not based on people who will make it easy for you, but because of people who want you to succeed.
Right, people who will support you and be understanding and kind and push you to know too, right? You're supposed to come out, and what everyone should remember while getting a PhD is you're coming out the expert. Not your committee, not your advisor. The project you chose, you are the expert on. Or I have 3 projects, but however many projects the topic, you should be the expert. Maybe your committee will understand, each individual member will understand parts of that project, but they won't really, the whole thing, not really, Everyone has their own specialty, and that's why they're on the committee.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting process, and I hope one day to be there for a student of my own.
Yeah.
To help them through the process.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thanks for giving us that overview, because this is something that every student pursuing a PhD is going to go through. And so...
And even a master's to an extent as well. It's a similar process.
Yeah.
Good luck, everybody who's going to take the plunge. You can do it.
Yeah. So going back to your research a little bit, I've talked about this a little bit, but I want you to... I think you have better experience than I do on this regard, but lots of people study mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us why that is? Like, why is mosquito research so significant? Like, you can work on mosquitoes basically anywhere. Like, it doesn't even have to be an entomology department. So what is so special about mosquitoes, and why are they so important? And why are they interesting to you as well?
Oh. Generally, people work on mosquitoes because of their vector capacity, right? They carry several diseases that are dangerous, if not deadly, to humans, dangerous to some of our livestock and our pets. They have killed more people. They kill more people every year than any other animal on the planet. They've got a bit of a bad reputation.
I believe more people than people kill every year.
Yeah,
I
it's
believe so.
Wild. They're pretty, and I mean that's why, right? You can study mosquitoes as an entomologist. You can study them as an epidemiologist, public health.
Oh yeah,
all kinds of agriculture. They're just important. I personally don't study them as vectors. I have no interest in their vector capacity. I find that to be their least interesting. characteristic. And maybe someone is silently booing me on the other side of the headset today who's listening to the podcast. But I think there's a lot more to them than just that. And certainly we need people to study that part of them because they are dangerous. And that's very important. But it's not for me. It's not what interests me. I think their biology is interesting, their ecology, their role in the natural world. Females drink blood, and that's only when they're ready to make eggs. Males never drink blood. They couldn't if they wanted to. They have little, like, butterfly-like soft proboscis. Yeah. They can't do it. They're pollinators. If you like orchids, some of them are primary pollinators for specific species of orchid. They're interesting. You know, and out of the, what do we have, like 35-ish hundred species of mosquito worldwide, only a few carry disease that we have to worry about. Some of them never bite humans. Some of them only bite birds. Some only bite reptiles. Yeah. And even those that do prefer to bite mammals, we're kind of their second choice. They'd rather like a big livestock, like a big cow or a sheep or something. A deer, we're kind of second rate. We're not as warm. They're looking, a lot of them are looking for heat. So I think there's a lot more to them than the vector base. And I've gone on and on about this on podcasts before. For those of you, if you do check out our podcast, Bugs Need Heroes, I did a whole hour on mosquitoes and why I like them. Yeah, so if you any questions on that front, please feel free to. Yeah. Well, how do you feel about mosquitoes?
Ooh, good question. So, I don't hate them as much as most people do. So I think it's pretty agreed upon across the board that everyone hates mosquitoes. That's actually one of the things I commonly get a remark on when I say that I'm an entomology major, is either how do you feel about mosquitoes, or them just saying, like, you got to do something about those mosquitoes, right? Yeah. So, it's pretty agreed upon that people don't like them. But me personally, I don't hate them. I'm also not one of those people that gets absolutely eaten alive.
Okay.
Depending on the person, actually, some people are, like, super susceptible. Some people barely get bit at all, right?
Yeah, and it probably depends on who you're around. If you're around someone else who's emitting all the right signals, and you're, like, half emitting the right signals, you're probably not going to get bugged too much.
Yeah, and I just don't really get bit a bunch, and I really see their ecological importance, right? Because everyone's like, oh, well, what if you just eradicated all the mosquitoes?
That's the question I get at every party I go to. If I go to a party and I'm introduced to new people and they ask me what I do, and then inevitably what I study, the first question is, oh, can we just eradicate every mosquito? And my answer is always a hard no on that. Yeah. The hubris of deleting many species.
Why not?
So there was a study that came out, maybe it's been 10 years now, that said that there would not be any. They ran some models. I don't remember what her name was, but she ran a bunch of models, and she found that there would not be severe ecological damage should we wipe out all the mosquitoes. I don't think we actually know what would happen. I don't trust the model.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
Sure, there's overlap. I think part of the crux of that was, if we got rid of all the mosquitoes, there's still plenty of other organisms that fill those particular niches, whether it be food or pollinating or being a detritivore in aquatic settings. But as worldwide insect populations continue to decline, and they're declining, and have been declining for about 50 plus years, we start losing some of that overlap. So while nature has made a bunch of redundancies, there may be other organisms that could fill that niche. They're all dying too. So I feel to purposefully pull out, to eradicate 3,500 plus species of mosquito simply, and no one ever says just the ones that hurt people. They're always like, let's get rid of all of them. So if we pull that many species out of the chain, how many links do we have left, Right. I think there could be issues that we never foresee. And if we remove, so mosquitoes are the monster we know, right? If we remove the insect causing these diseases that so far we understand, we can kind of control, we're working on management efforts. Who rises up to fill that space, and how bad are those diseases going to be? Because mosquitoes certainly are not the only insect that carry disease. So who fills the role?
Yeah,
and is it worse?
There's always a niche to fill, and there's always a bigger fish, right? So,
yeah, excellent Star Wars quote right there.
yeah. So, say we eliminated the mosquitoes that affect humans, right? That's still a whole niche that is now empty.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might take a really long time for that to be filled.
But there are other biting flies that carry disease. What if they rise up?
Yeah.
We don't know. I think the unknown is a little too scary. And I'm sure that's a very unpopular opinion. And like I mentioned earlier, it's the hubris, the arrogance of humans to think we get to decide what species live and what die is pretty unethical. I would have a really hard time with the ethics of that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've never done that. Aside from, like, hunting certain things, we've never driven something to extinction for the same reason as we're talking about, right? We've never eliminated something.
Not that I can think of. Yeah, other than, like, bacterial, like disease. Right? We've eradicated some diseases, but that's about it.
It's not like... Not really the
same. It's not the same,
animal, right?
We've accidentally put many animals into extinction, but not focused, right?
Never purposefully targeted something because it's a danger to humans. Right?
No.
So that's something we've never done before. And I think if we eliminated all mosquitoes, we don't know what would happen. And also, it's somewhat comparable. I don't know if you've seen the movie Oppenheimer or read the book, but it's one of those things like once you've done it, you can't undo it.
Yeah.
Right?
You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Mm-hmm. We can't bring them back once we've pulled them all. So it's just not... We are really working on some really fascinating... And say we, I mean science in general, not me personally. But there have been a lot of genetic mitigation strategies, like sending out sterile males into mosquito populations, which drops it. CRISPR is very popular and very exciting. There could be genetic modifications coming down the pipeline that would make the mosquito a bad vector. So if that mosquito can no longer host the disease, it's not a problem. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can start working on something like that. And I don't know how feasible that is because, again, I don't work in that field. But, who knows? Who knows what medical and genetic things we can come up with in the next 10, 50 years.
Yeah. And I saw a seminar on that topic with CRISPR and mosquitoes. And he said the exact same thing. He said that that's also like a genie that you've now released, right? You can't put it back in the bottle. So once you release these genetically modified mosquitoes, these genetically modified mosquitoes, you can't reverse that, right? They go out and breed, they're in the population, you can't undo that now. So you need to that's another thing we've never really done, is put out into the wild a genetically modified.
This is pretty new.
So to me, it's kind of terrifying at the same time, because it's like, what if we totally mess this up, right? And you can't undo something like that once you've done it. I think it's really cool that, we could still have, in theory, these mosquitoes that exist. They still feed on mammals to reproduce, but they aren't able to vector the diseases.
Yeah, I think that would be incredible. I don't know if anyone's listening and you are working on that, please hit me up, because I would love to know more on the process and how it's going, because I'm sure someone is studying that.
Yeah.
That's maybe a Nobel Prize waiting
I'm
to
sure.
happen.
Yeah. That would be awesome. And I know you don't study the disease side of things, but I also want to mention the research of the, I'm doing quotation, the more basic studies of these organisms is equally as important, right?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention that because lots of people going into research want to do this eccentric, super crazy, flashy, groundbreaking
We all
thing.
want to be mad scientists, but it's unnecessary.
Exactly. But I would say the more basic side of things is just as important, right? So you being able to understand how this egg development works in mosquitoes could be applied to all kinds of things, like the people studying the disease stuff could use that information
Yeah.
as useful.
Yeah, and understanding how heat affects egg hatching can help us predict population bursts and explosions.
Or with climate change too.
With climate change, yeah, because it's only getting warmer. As I'm on the east, you're on the East Coast as well. You're in Florida,
That's right?
It's already pretty toasty down there.
Yeah.
Where you are, but every year it's getting a little warmer up here in the Northeast. And as things get warmer, some mosquitoes that are only found in the more southern regions of the U.S. will start to come up here, and that's things like Aedes aegypti that carries yellow fever, and dengue fever. I mean, things will start to travel.
Right.
So understanding how temperature affects the way these mosquitoes not only hatch but change geographic location is important. You don't have to study the crazy stuff. I mean, this stuff is going to help us handle, mitigate really, and manage a disease outbreak, because we should be able to predict it before it happens and spray or do whatever management tasks those folks are centered on.
It's so cool. Yeah, building a map of in 5 years that says where this could be is really an interesting thing.
Yeah, those models are out there, and they are showing some pretty interesting mosquito spreading across the U.S.
Yeah.
Nothing fun, unfortunately. Just just the bad stuff.
It's like a curse, knowing all these things, because at night you're like, but the mosquitoes, right? What if?
Every night before I go to sleep, I'm like, where will they be in 50 years?
And where will I be to avoid them all?
Yeah.
Because I have the curse of knowledge. I'm going to be just running away from them all. But
yeah, you can't unknow. You can't unknow things. Everyone else gets to go to sleep at night and not think about it. But I'm like, oof, things are looking hairy. Or even about I'm sure you heard the monarch was suggested to go on the endangered species list. And I was just talking to a class about that at my university the other day, and sort of knowing the trajectory of those two eastern and western populations. I wish I didn't. I wish I didn't know what was going on, because it's a little, not to be a bummer on your pod, Bradon, but it's a little depressing.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can only study so much. You're doing mosquitoes. You don't really have time to do monarchs. You can't do it all.
I can't switch I wish I could save everything. That's the problem. That's the problem. You'll find a big thing about scientists of all categories, all fields. We are passionate. We love the things we're working on. We don't make a lot of money. People think scientists are people have all kinds of weird preconceived notions about scientists. I make nothing. I love insects, but I love ecology in general. I love all wildlife. And I do it because it's exciting to me. And I teach at a university. I'm an adjunct professor at Monmouth University, New Jersey. I teach because I want to talk about it, and who else will listen? So if you have to be in my class, I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah, and then it'll be on the quiz.
And it's on the quiz. My husband can only listen to me prattle on about insects for so long, although he's very patient. Thank you, honey.
That's kind of what this podcast and my YouTube channel is for, is so that my friends and my mom and my brothers don't have to listen to me go on and on about whatever new thing that I learned. Yeah, do
you get the text messages from your friends where they send you a random bug photo?
Oh yeah, this? And then often
and
pixelated.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're looks like a gray blob because you're on a Samsung or whatever.
You're just yep, that's a dragonfly of some kind.
And they're like, well, I knew that.
Yeah. Well, this is the blurriest image I've ever seen.
2014 called your BlackBerry.
Your Nokia is a brick now, please.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your other schooling.
Sure.
Where did you get your other degrees? What did you study, and what was that kind of like?
Sure. So my bachelor's degree comes from Monmouth University, from their Marine and Environmental Biology and Policy program. So I did not get to do research as an undergrad because I had to work to put myself through college, which I'm still paying off my undergrad. Not everyone gets full funding for things.
Yeah.
And I did not come from a wealthy family. Yeah. So I didn't get to do research for that, but I do have a great love of marine bio. I grew up down the shore in New Jersey. I've been swimming my whole life, whether it be at like local lakes or the ocean. My grandfather had a boat. Very much a Jersey Shore gal, as they say. And my master's degree comes from Montclair State University, and it's in ecology and evolutionary biology, where I did have a master's thesis, which I defended and published that research in a journal. I was looking at the sort of sensory systems of 4 arthropod prey, so terrestrial isopods, which you might know as a roly-poly, or a potato bug, or a pill bug, or any of the many colloquial names for those little guys. I got a roller, so when you touch it, it rolls right up. That's called, your $500 word is conglobation. That's what it's called when they roll.
That's a new one for me. I've not heard that.
It's a great word. And then the others we call runners, because they're a little flatter. They're very fast. They're not built like the little tanks.
Yeah.
Their cousins are. And then I looked at German cockroaches. Never work with German cockroaches, folks. They can climb glass and get out of anything. Mm-hmm. We had an issue where an undergrad opened my roach tank in the evening, and there were roaches everywhere in the morning.
They're fast, too.
So fast. I would not work with them again.
Yeah.
And field crickets. So basic feeder crickets you get from like the pet store. And I was looking at how they react to a predator. And the predator was the Carolina wolf spider, Hogna carolinensis, which is our biggest wolf spider north of Mexico.
So cool.
So beautiful. I love these spiders. They're so pretty. I put them in an enclosure together on top of a snare drum. And either the snare drum, the vibration worked, or I put a dampener on it and it didn't. So either the prey could feel the spider moving or it couldn't. And I put a divider between them, and either the divider was clear or painted over, so either it could see the spider or it couldn't. And then I poked holes in it or I didn't, so either they could smell or chemically sense the spider or not. And I changed all the combinations of these cues. So sometimes it could feel but not smell and see, sometimes it could not see, but
Yeah.
And I logged, so this is a bit of an insanity project, which happens sometimes.
Yeah.
I have pictured 2 computers side by side, 2 keyboards. One, the keyboard says run, stasis, so don't move, antennae, and then hop if I was using crickets. The other side is stasis, charge, walk, run. That's for the spider. And I have both my hands up, and every time they moved, I would click one of those keys. And it was recording how long did each organism do that thing. And I did this for 2-minute trials, 750 something times.
Unreal.
That was my master's project.
That's studying behavior in a nutshell, though. It's just insanity.
Yeah, it was great.
Crazy. So I just want to make sure I understand this. So the snare drum amplifies the vibration from the spider, right?
Yeah, so we know that they're feeling it.
Okay, so the idea is that the prey can sense the vibrations from the spider and will react in some way, or won't. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then same thing with visual.
Yep, and chemical.
Yeah. Oh, and chemical, okay. So did you, poke and prod the spider to make it move around or anything?
Oh, no, I just let it, I put it in the enclosure for about 2 minutes so it could acclimate, so it wouldn't get freaked out, and under a little cover, and with a string on it, and then I pull the string to take the cover off, and usually I feel like towards the end of the study, because I used I think I had about 22 spiders to cycle through. Yeah. They seemed to get used to it. After a few rounds, they weren't nervous. They didn't clam up or anything. They just started exploring. Watching them charge that divider though was amazing. Yeah. What a cool experience. But I have all of that. I have all of that data recorded, and I did publish it. But I also I hooked up a piezoelectric transducer, which is what you put on an electric guitar, and I recorded the sound of all of them moving. I haven't done anything with that, but I have it on a computer somewhere.
That's cool, though. Yeah, maybe use those in the podcast or something.
Record a rock album with bug sounds.
Make a new intro with the bug sounds. Oh, that's cool.
It was an interesting project. Yeah.
So, did you find anything interesting, or?
So I found what I thought was interesting. I thought there would be a significant difference in behavior between the two roly-polies, because one really has that armor and the other is going to have to book it to get away because they're still pretty dense, that cuticle is strong, but they both reacted in the same way. There was no difference in their behavior at all. I found this study it was a long time ago now. Roaches were really interested in antennal movements. So when that spider started moving, they really start like touching the floor with their antennae. They're moving it around. Crickets also kind of move the antennae a lot. So I think now remember, roaches are used to being in the dark. They don't want to be in the light. They're immediately like uncomfortable with that scenario, and they want to be touching something. When an organism is gregarious, like a roach is, they want to be together and they want to feel secure. So it was constantly pushing itself against the edge of the arena.
Yeah.
I assume in an effort to hide, but also just to get that like touch that they're looking for.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen a roach like run across the floor, they're really like skittering. They're trying to get to something.
Yeah.
So that was pretty
Yeah, they're
interesting.
kind of weaving around the room until they get to the edge of the room.
Yeah, that's what they want. So it was pretty cool. But what I did learn unintentionally, and this is something I'd like to study once I get a permanent position somewhere in a lab, my own lab. The wolf spiders. Every week they get one cricket, and they would get their cricket at like a different time, because if I was going to use them in the arena, I didn't want to feed them that day. So it was like dependent on when they were going to perform. They started to come to the front of their cup when I walked in and scratch at it. I think they were associating me with food.
No way.
Which is an interesting thing to think about cognitively for a spider.
Right.
They stopped hiding. They came out of their little, because they were in like a deli container, like a soup cup. Because you have to keep them separate or they'll eat each other. So I had like 22 soup cups with spiders in them on the lab bench. And they would usually hang out in the little enclosure. I put a half a Dixie cup in there and they hang out in it. They would always come out of the Dixie cup and come to the front of the deli container and scratch or touch. And I think they were associating me with food.
It's so cool. And I just want to mention, we don't really see that with insects very much. So whereas spiders, kind of across the board, are a lot longer lived. So I have experience with tarantulas, so I've kept tarantulas for many years.
Oh yeah. Those are very long lived.
Yeah, and they're the same way. You'll notice that, if you've had them a long time, they will sort of come to the entrance when you open the lid, and not really because they want to escape, because they're attached to their, burrow.
Their home bodies.
Yeah, they like to be around. So they're not trying to escape, unless you have a crazy species, one of the ones that just bolts. They're looking for food usually, right?
And they know you're going to give it to them. It's amazing.
Exactly. It's awesome. It's so cool. And the neurobiology of spiders is so crazy to me, because as far as arthropods go, they live a very long time.
Yeah, wolfies can live around 2 years.
Yeah.
Big female will live a couple years. The males not so much. But there's something. Well, there have been studies, not to go too far into Spiderland.
Yeah.
But there have been studies of the Salticidae, which is the jumping spiders. So the genus is Portia, and they have forethought. So they'll know where a fly will be in the next 10 seconds and preemptively jump in that direction. So they have huge neurons connected to their eyes, so they're very eyesight focused. And if anyone's ever put their finger in front of a jumping spider and moved it, they will follow the movement.
They're so cool.
They'll also follow a laser pointer, so if anyone wants to try that game, it's very fun.
They're so cool, and they're so charismatic, and
they are.
Yeah,
they're so cute. They're very fuzzy. But there's a lot going on, I think, with spiders, and I think that's going to be my next, project focus is some interesting spider work.
Yeah.
I told you everything is fascinating. I can't stay focused on one animal.
So many things to work on. Super cool. So, tell us about this podcast.
Yeah.
Tell us about your podcast. What has been your experience with that?
It's so much fun. So, as you mentioned in the beginning, it's called Bugs Need Heroes, and they certainly do. I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and my co-host Amanda is an artist and an illustrator. She doesn't know anything about bugs. She's been on a 2-year journey with me to
So fun.
learn, and she's awesome. She's like the whole heart of the show. I love her so much. She's the audience too, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we come in and we pick a bug, and we're pretty fast and loose with the term bug. We've done mantis shrimp before, so why not? And I go over its amazing abilities, because every bug out there is interesting, all of them. And some of them can do some pretty incredible things. And I explain that to Amanda. She asks fantastic questions as we go along. We share little stories if we happen to know about those bugs. We've had personal experience. And by the end of it, the goal of the show is every bug gets its own Spider-Man. So Amanda draws a hero, or sometimes a villain, depending on the bug. I believe our mosquitoes were villains, based on that bug. And we put it up on Instagram and on our website so folks can kind of see what that looks like. Yeah. I write show notes. I write what we call Kelly's Field Notes for every episode. So it goes into like the long-winded version about this particular bug, and we put that on the website as well.
Blog post kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of like a big blog post. And it's been so much fun. Now, people think that if you're an entomologist, you automatically know everything about every bug.
There's no
ever.
way. It's impossible. Yeah.
There are too many species for me to do that. So while I probably have a much more advanced general knowledge about arthropods, I do have to do a deep dive. For mosquitoes, I didn't. Mosquitoes, I just showed up and we had the episode. Wolf spiders, we just showed up when I showed up and we just did the episode. But there are some things I do have to research, especially if they're Western species that we don't get over here. But it's made me a better entomologist. It's made me a better ecologist as well, thinking about all this. Insects, arachnids, arthropods in general are such a huge group. It's so important to the health of the entire world, if we think about it. So it's been a ton of fun. We also do interviews. So we've interviewed you've been on our show, Bradon. We love to have you. That episode I think just came out. You guys can go
check that out. It's a lot about me, which is really fun because I haven't really
the people need to know. The people need to know about you.
I think the last episode I did about myself was when I was 15. So that's really good. But
so this catches everybody up. But we've also had entomologists who, we had a curator from a museum in Utah, Christy. She was fantastic and talked to us all about insect and arthropod curation and how that works. We've had my master's advisor on, who is an expert in terrestrial isopods.
Oh, nice. And
he's also an expert in sexual selection, which is fascinating. So that episode got a little not safe for work, guys, but you could check that out. It's been awesome. I've met so many cool entomologists through the show. We met some at conferences, and what a world-opening thing it is. And I'm sure you have the same feeling about having a podcast where you can connect with other experts, because I'm fine, but I'm not an expert in everything. So it's good to have guests on. Although I certainly do the best that I can when it's just me. This weekend it's just me. So
yeah, for sure.
Sunday.
Yeah, and I have the exact same experience. It's made me a better student. Teaching things, or I should say learning things twice, is really valuable for me as a student. And meeting so many people. I have the same experience as you. And then
it makes you a good listener too.
Yeah. And then I'll obviously leave all the links in the description for you guys to go check Bugs Need Heroes out. But you guys will also notice some cross-pollination, right? So lots of guests that you guys have had. Christy, you mentioned, is
wonderful.
The museum curator. She's fantastic. I've had her on the show. So, you guys will notice some familiar faces between the two, as well as myself. So
and
really
our interview styles are a little different. So
they are, yeah.
You get it's like getting to know that person a second time, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And our podcast actually started because our producer Derek, who you will occasionally hear on the show, but he tries not to pop up too often. His thing is there are already enough white guys with podcasts, so
that's fair.
He's here to bolster two women doing it. He's wonderful. Love you, Derek. You're awesome. But Derek and I give talks at comic book conventions about the biology of superheroes.
That's so cool.
So we compare like Wolverine and his powers to Wolverine, actual Wolverines.
Yeah.
We compare, of course, Spider-Man and Peter Parker to what is a Spidey sense, how does that work. We do a whole hour presentation just on spiders and Spider-Man.
So cool.
And one day we had gone down to do a convention in Philadelphia. And on the way back, Derek was just like, we should just do a podcast. We should do a podcast. And that's kind of how we kind of thought about it, because it's like an hour and a half drive back to my apartment. And then the show was born. And it really came from our love of superheroes and the Comic-Cons we were already doing. We're like, well, what if every bug had that opportunity? What if everybody had a superhero? I think we can do that.
Such a great idea.
We still do Comic-Cons, so if you ever see us out there,
I was going to ask,
say hi.
like, do they invite you, like, or do you organize like a panel? What's the reception like? Do you get a pretty good turnout, or?
Oh, it's been awesome. We've been doing this since 2018 and maybe 2017. And so most cons, you can put in an application to do a panel. So we put it in, and it's usually me and Derek. Sometimes Amanda is our moderator. My friend, Dr. Ped Daneshkar, he's a plant biologist. He's occasionally on to talk about poison ivy and Groot and sort of interesting plant heroes.
That's awesome.
We have a veterinarian, Dr. Mike, who comes on and talks about more like a Catwoman and some stuff like that. And we just pitch it. We pitch the panel, and the reception's awesome. Absolutely awesome. The audience questions always go over our allotted time.
That's good.
They have lots of questions. And Ped and I started doing a Star Wars panel where we do the biology of Star Wars characters and how the different aliens would work, or how banthas would operate. And that one had a really great reception as well. It's a good time, man. You know, when you're a nerd and you can go out and talk about nerd stuff.
Oh yeah.
And other people are excited about it. It's super fun, super duper fun. So we're gonna try to sign up for some this year, but we haven't looked into any yet. I've been so busy trying to get this PhD done that
Yeah, you got a little bit on your plate, I think.
Yeah. And I've been consulting for a 3-part graphic novel series where I've been the science consultant on. It's so cute. It's called Jackson's Wilder Adventures. The first volume is out, and it's almost like a Calvin and Hobbes thing.
Okay.
But Hobbes is a thylacine, the extinct marsupial. And I've been doing like the fact-checking on different types of wildlife that the author puts into the book and how they would operate. And
so cool.
Super fun. So, and I only mention that for undergrads or high school students who might be listening. There are so many opportunities in science for you to do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And get out there and share your passion, and lots and lots. You just got to be open to it. You gotta say yes to stuff.
And I'm super into like the intersection between science and pop culture. A lot of things get it wrong, but
every scientist is evil in a lot of pop culture.
It's again that curse of knowledge that we were talking about a minute ago.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not right, and it's like, oh, okay, it's just for fun, whatever. But yeah, it's really cool. And actually, I don't know if you've seen the issue of American Entomologist, but this one is all about...
Ooh, I haven't read it yet. It's in my work bag.
It's really cool. But
is it good?
They have like a section on... It's called Are Entomologists Mad Scientists According to Horror Movies? So they go over like the appearances of either entomologists or insect enthusiasts or arthropod curators or stuff.
They do make us look like weirdos.
In horror movies, yeah. It was a really cool section, and it was like right up my alley. So
oh, that's awesome. I
really
gotta read
cool.
it.
Yeah. But I think that's about time. But everyone definitely go check out Kelly's podcast. Kelly, thank you so much for being on the show. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or tell the people before we sign off?
I don't think so. You can find my personal stuff. I'm on Blue Sky and Instagram at Fills Your Niche. Little ecology joke there, folks. I tend to share videos and images, mostly of bugs, but of other things too. And I try to like go over what they are, what's interesting about them. So it's more of like a learning Instagram with hopefully pretty photos kind of thing. And if I'll put this out there. If you are an undergrad or thinking about becoming an undergrad and you have any questions, my inbox is always, always open. Come find me. I'm totally happy to help in any way.
Yeah, and I'll share the links to both your personal and the podcast info in the show notes, so you guys can go check that out. But yeah, Kelly, thank you so much for chatting with me. You're obviously a natural at this. This was super fun, always a great time.
You.
But thanks for being on my podcast. Thanks for letting me come on your podcast. Super fun.
Thank you. Thanks for the little cross-pollination. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we gotta stick together, but yeah, it's so fun that all these different people are making all these podcasts. It's a really awesome space that's happening. Really exciting time to be a part of it. So thanks again, Kelly. This was super fun.